Woodcut is a relief printing technique in printmaking. An artist carves an image into the surface of a block of wood, typically with gouges, leaving the printing parts level with the surface while removing the non-printing parts. Areas that the artist cuts away carry no ink, while characters or images at surface level carry the ink to produce the print. The block is cut along the grain of the wood, unlike wood engraving where the block is cut in the end grain. The surface is covered with ink by rolling over the surface with an ink-covered roller, brayer, leaving ink upon the flat surface but not in the non-printing areas. Multiple colors can be printed by keying the paper to a frame around the wood blocks, using a different block for each color. The art of carving the woodcut can be called xylography, but this is rarely used in English for images alone, although that and xylographic are used in connection with block books, which are small books containing text and images in the same block. Single-leaf woodcut is a term for a woodcut presented as a single image or print, as opposed to a book illustration. Woodcut or woodblock printing is a technique for printing text, images or patterns that was used widely throughout East Asia. It originated in China in antiquity as a method of printing on textiles and later on paper. The earliest woodblock printed fragments to survive are from China and are of silk printed with flowers in 3 colors from the Han Dynasty, before AD 220. In the 13th century the Chinese technique of block printing was transmitted to Europe. Paper arrived in Europe, also from China via Islamic Spain, slightly later, and was being manufactured in Italy by the end of the 13th century, and in Burgundy and Germany by the end of the 14th. In Europe, woodcut is the oldest technique used for Old Master prints, developing about 1400, by using, on paper, existing techniques for printing. One of the more ancient woodcuts on paper that can be seen today is the Fire Madonna, Madonna del Fuoco, in the Italian language, in the Cathedral of Forlì, in Italy. The explosion of sales of cheap woodcuts in the middle of the century led to a fall in standards, and many popular prints were very crude. The development of hatching followed on rather later than engraving. Michael Wohlgemuth was significant in making German woodcuts more sophisticated from about 1475. And Erhard Reuick was the first to use cross-hatching, far harder to do than engraving or etching. Both of these produced mainly book illustrations, as did various Italian artists who were also raising standards there at the same period. At the end of the century Albrecht Dürer brought the Western woodcut to a level that, arguably, has never been surpassed, and greatly increased the status of the single-leaf woodcut, that is an image sold separately. As woodcut can be easily printed together with movable type, because both are relief printed, it was the main medium for book illustrations until the late 16th century. The first woodcut book illustration dates to about 1461, only a few years after the beginning of printing with movable type, printed by Albrecht Pfister and Bamberg. Woodcut was used less often for individual, single-leaf, fine art prints from about 1550 until the late 19th century, when interest revived. It remained important for popular prints until the 19th century in most of Europe, and later in some places. The art reached a high level of technical and artistic development in East Asia and Iran. In Japan woodblock printing is called makuhanga, and was introduced in the 17th century for both books and art. The popular floating world genre of ukiyo-e originated in the second half of the 17th century, with prints in monochrome or 2 colors. Sometimes these were hand-colored after printing. Later prints with many colors were developed. Japanese woodcut became a major artistic form, although at the time it was accorded a much lower status than painting. It continued to develop through to the 20th century.